Buenos dias, Socorro.
Hola, Chris. Welcome to our 5th episode of the Astrology, the Underworld Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Coco Carrillo Lopez, and this is my partner, the love of my life.
Chris Emerald. I'm the drummer of the Sacramento hardcore band Eyes Out, and so happy to be here. Welcome to episode 5.
Cinco.
All right.
Sí. So today we are going to be talking, first of all,
Oh, fuck this guy. Yeah. Fuck this guy. This guy's trash, dude. We'll get into it. It's just like,
I have mixed feelings about this guy,
I
and it's
agree.
not just because he's good looking.
That's hilarious. He's a handsome looking dude.
Yeah.
But it just really bothers me these men attacking women the way they do.
I totally.
It's just so hard for me to sit there and try to find empathy when that happens.
Yeah,
Because it's just bullshit.
I totally agree, and I totally just spoke over you. I apologize. We're trying to get the sound right, so that's why we're holding these things in our hands.
Yes.
But anyway, so we are covering today.
We are covering Wade Wilson, also known as the Deadpool Killer. He is a gentleman that was born on May 20th, 1994, which makes him a
He's a Taurus.
Taurus.
We do not have an exact time for him, but I made him a Gemini rising, and we'll talk about that later. Do you want to talk about his childhood?
Sure. So let's get into his childhood a little bit. He was convicted of a double murder, sentenced to death in 2024. Has an interesting fan base. So let's go ahead and start with his early childhood. So he was adopted. He was adopted because his parents were teenagers when they were pregnant with him. So shortly after he was born, he was adopted. He was raised in Tallahassee, Florida. Now, one thing, he has a history of 4 concussions or head trauma.
This is why I'm having a hard time, because our brain is an organ just like any other organ in our body and can have issues. And I also, yes, I did forget to say we have a quote here for his Gemini rising. I just want to back up a little bit. Gemini rising, the charming monster with 2 faces, which he definitely behaved in different ways. But when you have head injuries, especially as a child, the likelihood of things going wrong with you behaviorally goes up.
Well, yeah, that's like the big issue with concussions in sports. And you see sometimes NFL players have violent issues or abusers or whichever. Not to say that other sports people, but you tend to hear about the NFL guys all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so he had 2 when he was younger that were due to automobile accidents. One, if I recall right, they got into an accident when he hit his head on the windshield, probably gave him a concussion. And then he had a tree fell on him when he was younger that gave him another concussion. And then the last 2 were actually football injuries.
Do you remember by any chance who was driving the car when he was in the accident? Did it say or did it not say? It just said accident.
I want to say without 100% that it was like family.
Okay.
I don't know if it was his adopted parents or what.
So it's just in his chart, his sun is making a square to his Chiron in the 4th house. I was just wondering if maybe his dad was driving, and also just wondering if his dad was either one of his dads, because he was actually in the documentary his biological father, and he had a close relationship.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering what role dad had to play, because I did make him a Gemini rising, which would have put Chiron in Virgo in the 4th house. And Virgo is very much about perfectionism. You have to be perfect. And the 4th house is dad, right? So I was just wondering if maybe dad was like, play football, be perfect. I don't know if I'm just making a conjecture.
I never really saw much about his adopted parents. They don't really talk much about his biological mom. But yeah, you're right. His biological father seemed to be very involved with him, especially in the later part of his life when he called him to tell him what happened and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And then he also did some burglary and assault.
Yeah, so when he was younger, probably high school age, that's when he started getting into trouble, maybe 12 and up. 12, he started, I think it was at age 12, there was some quote from him that his parents had mentioned that he felt like something was wrong with him.
When
He was 11, okay.
Mhm.
So
I
then,
think I remember you telling me
yeah,
that. Yeah.
and so I think it just escalated as he got into high school. Everybody remembers high school hormones and trying to interpret things and am I liked, am I not liked, and trying to make a name for yourself. And so unfortunately, he started getting into trouble with the law.
Yeah. His son is at the anoretic degree, which is like a crisis degree, desperation, or maybe something unfinished. I put it in the 12th house, which is like the hidden self. It's also our self undoing. It can also be transcendence. And now he is in prison, and he will be in prison until the day he dies, because didn't he get the death penalty?
Yeah, he got the death penalty. Yeah, yeah, I think the only way, I don't know how the law is. Yeah, I think he can probably appeal it, but I don't know if that's going to go too far.
Yeah, I think he actually is appealing it. So his persona, if you don't know anything about Wade Wilson, is he's actually like very good looking.
He's a handsome looking dude. He has that rockabilly, faded, kind of Italian gangster looking dude.
Yeah, and a really nice smile, and he's got these dimples, and women just flocked to him before and after he was in prison. And it's almost like now, and he has a TikTok fan base, and people are women send him money, women and men send him money and gifts, and it's interesting to watch him. If you get a chance, just look up some videos of him. There's documentaries out about him, and he's just lapping it up, and he turns it on the second he gets on the phone with these women.
He does. They definitely showed some video of him. He actually even said that's how he's able to lure these women in, is with his charm.
And so I put that's why I made him a Gemini rising, because I put his Mercury and his Venus, which are both in Gemini, in the first house, which when when there are planets in your first house, where your rising sign is, these traits are inherent within you, and you meet the world with them. And so with Venus there, very good looking, Venus as aesthetics and its beauty and its relationships. And then Mercury also right there, communication. So another guy who's really good at communicating and smooth talking with these women. Although it's interesting, because I don't necessarily think that he lies to them. I think that he believes the things that he's saying to them too. It was actually a little weird to hear him talking with these women and talking about how they were going to have rough sex. Remember?
Yeah, well, the whole thing, immediately when I saw that, I'm like, dude, how are you going to have rough sex when you're in prison for life?
Well, also the last women that he was around, he literally murdered them because he
Right.
wanted to. That was the only reason. There was no other reason other than he literally said, I wanted to kill them. All I could think of is kill.
Yep, that's what he said.
I thought there was an interesting correlation with the character Deadpool, because the character in the movie, the Marvel comic movie, Deadpool, his name, his alter ego is Wade Wilson. That's his name. And so it's just interesting, because Deadpool, his character gets wounded, and then he gains this ability to heal, and so that he can't die. And it's almost like he's this cynical superhero. Like, he's not happy to do it, but he has to. And Wade Wilson has a wound that can't heal. This Wade Wilson has a wound that can't heal because, of his brain injury. Deadpool heals and helps others despite disfigurement. And then Wade Wilson wounds others because of his unhealable wound. And then he disfigures himself because he has all these tattoos that he put all over his face. So I don't know. I thought that was ironic. And I have a chart too that I'll put up on our Instagram if people want to look at the synastry between this Wade Wilson and the
Comic.
moment that the Deadpool comic was created, which means that Wade Wilson was created. It's very interesting because they're the inversion of one another.
Mm.
Do you want to talk about what he
Sure.
did?
Yeah. So basically, he was out drinking, partying, met a woman by the name of Kristine Melton, and they were at some bar at Fort Myers. They returned to her home.
Melissa was with him at the bar. She said she was actually his girlfriend Melissa, and he were at this bar together. And he said, I just want to go do a bunch of drugs and just party. And she was like, okay, you go ahead and have fun with that. I'm going home. And then he ended up with this person, right?
Right. And he picks up this Kristine Melton, but Kristine and her friend went back to Kristine's house with Wade Wilson. And that's where, when they left, he crashed there allegedly, but then he ended up killing her in her sleep. I think he strangled her and then stole her car. And then he goes down to see his girlfriend, or calls his girlfriend up. And she was working at a salon. So he stops by the salon. She comes outside.
Another hairdresser.
He starts like beating her up and having all these issues. And she swears if she would have gone with him, that she would have been dead.
Yeah, there's actually footage of her right after he had attacked her, and she was saying that he was telling her to come with him, go with him. And just really quickly, just a little bit of astrology. He has this kite pattern that where his sun is directly opposing his Pluto in Scorpio, which is retrograde at 26 degrees and 37 minutes. And so these 2 points are the focal points of his chart. And we have another person with Pluto, power, wanting to have power over something or someone else. And if he is a Gemini rising, that would put his Pluto in the 6th house, which rules the physical body, which is about the physical body. And so having power over others' physical bodies, which ultimately ends him up in prison, which is where I put his sun in the 12th house, which is like about prisons and hospitals. It's also about transcendence. But yeah, anyway, so then
This is why I would want to see, if I was going to date someone, I'd want to see their birth chart and just see what they're doing. Because
again, it doesn't necessarily
no,
mean that this is how
I
they're going to be.
no, what I'm saying though is that you look at their birth chart and what kind of energy they're putting out there.
Yeah.
If they're putting out the dark side, then your question is answered. If they're being super nice, if they're doing more of the light side, then your question's answered as well.
Our son has placements in the 6th house, and he decided to become an Olympic weightlifter. That is something different from, that's like power over your own body, control over your own body. And so it just depends on how you reflect that energy out into the world.
What you
have a choice.
express.
Yeah.
What you express. Absolutely.
So after he beat up his girlfriend.
So he leaves his girlfriend after she's like, hell no, I'm not going with you, dude. I'd say the same thing. He's driving. He sees this woman who happens to be Diane Ruiz.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And her
he's just-
husband too. It was so sad. He literally, it was the saddest thing to ever see her husband just cry and say, my best friend was taken away from me for no reason, for literally no reason.
So she's walking and he lures her into the car asking for directions. Hey, I'm lost, blah, blah, blah. At some point, she comes into the car and he beats her and strangles her. And then he pushes her out. And then he decides to run over her repeatedly because, as he quoted, is what he said, he wanted her to look like spaghetti.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. And so shortly after that, he calls his biological father and says, I'm a killer. And he'd do it again. And I think it was over a couple days that he was telling his dad this, his biological dad. And then at some point, the father finally said, okay, I think this dude totally did this. So he calls the police. And then the next day, he got arrested.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at, he has this, again, if he is a Gemini rising, his Uranus Neptune conjunction in Capricorn, oddly, very oddly, I literally did a reading yesterday with a person who had this exact conjunction. And it's just interesting to me because Uranus is about forward thinking, revolution, innovation. And this person who I gave a reading to yesterday is thinking creatively, which is Neptune, about innovating our society in a way that is going to make things better for everyone. This person that I spoke to yesterday has this exact conjunction
Mm.
and is choosing to do something different. Whereas this person, Wade Wilson, has this, it's a part of his kite configuration. It is directly, it's trining his moon, which I also think that his moon is in Virgo in the 4th house. I also think that even though he can't consciously remember when his teenage parents gave him up, they didn't give him up when he was born. They birthed him and then cared for him for a while and then decided we can't do it and then gave him up. And so it just makes me wonder like how much that actually has to do with him, do with it unconsciously with that trine to his moon in the 4th house. But if he is a Gemini rising, that Uranus-Neptune conjunction in the 8th house, again, where death happens, Uranus is also shock and sudden surprises, and Neptune is drugs and confusion and dissolution. Oh yeah, and he was like super like high on drugs, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
I'm sure he did some cocaine, maybe
Yeah,
on a toilet seat.
that's a
Fuck.
good one. Yeah, and then Capricorn, his Saturn is ruling that, and Saturn is in Pisces, so adding more to the confusion. And also his Saturn is making a trine to his Jupiter in the 6th house. And it was interesting to me the way that when he was talking to his dad, he was telling his dad, "You know me, all I could think of was murder, kill, kill." So it was almost like they had talked about it before.
I think his dad, it never said when his biological dad started having contact with him, but it seems like the dad didn't seem surprised. So I don't know what conversations they had in the past. If you're a parent and I don't know, I always think you have that connection because half of them are when something's not right, you may try to push your intuition aside, but you freaking know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You fucking know. So after he got arrested, he was arrested on October 8th, 2019. He, hilarious, not hilarious, but he attempted a jail escape in 2020. So I don't know. I always find it, how are you going to escape jail? What you going to do?
Where are you
Where
gonna
are you going to
go?
go?
He's known globally because he's not just getting money and gifts from people in the United States. He's getting money and
Yeah.
gifts from people all over the world.
And so he had his trial in 2024. It showed no emotion during the verdict. Looked super handsome. He had great suits. Great. I don't know who was doing his hair inside the prison, but that fade was sharp, man. Woo, forget about
Probably
it.
is it the same one who's doing Luigi Mangione?
Maybe.
He was sentenced to death.
Yeah, he was sentenced to death August 27th, 2024. Then that's where he's basically on death row. And what's interesting is this fan base that he has. There's a lot of women don't understand the I don't know, maybe you can give some insight to that.
I think that there's I think women would agree with me on this. I think that there's something inside of us that believes for some reason that we can change these people because we don't actually see them. And this is part of the problem, part of our problem collectively is we don't see them as dangerous because we inherently, because we create humans, it's hard for us to believe that we can't help them or nurture them to get them to realize that the way that they're living their life is not going to be helpful or that they were not going to be happy. But I am here to assure you that that does not work. And I also remember his the new girlfriend that he had after he got put in prison. She went to all of his trials, and after she saw what he did and heard what he did, she broke up with him.
So I think he had multiple girlfriends. I don't think he just had the one. There was a lot, but that was the one that kept on going to his court or his trial. And afterwards, in the documentary, she just literally, I felt like she didn't say it this way, but like the look on her face was, I'm a dumbass. this
Yes.
guy's a monster.
That is exactly what I saw too. She came to this realization like, what am I doing? What am I thinking? So, just to go over like a few things in his chart. Again, I put his sun in the 12th house because I made him a Gemini rising, which makes sense because it's directly opposing his natal Pluto, which is in this kite configuration, and it is as if his desire or attempt to control others' bodies and his impulses got him landed in prison. And that is where he's, no matter what, he's never getting out. Like he's either going to die from the death penalty or he'll be there forever and die in prison of old age. I don't see him having any remorse whatsoever at all.
No.
And that actually makes sense to me too, because his Saturn is in Pisces. Saturn is the wet blanket, the cold, the boundaries, which is ruling his Neptune Uranus conjunction in Capricorn. So it's like everything is pointing towards coldness. His Mars is in Aries, and Mars is battles, wars, heat, and it's in Aries, which is also fiery.
Energy.
Yes, and it is squaring the Neptune Uranus conjunction in Capricorn. And so his drug induced chaos and disruption was fueled by anger and fire. It was just
Yeah.
like all there. And then his Chiron and his moon both in Virgo, to me, is a very interesting sign because all of the people that I know who have a lot of Virgo energy in their chart, for example, like most of them are like yoga buffs and they take really good care of their bodies, but they're also very perfectionistic. And so they have a tendency to get down on themselves because they feel like they're never good enough. And so with Chiron and his moon, both in Virgo, possibly in the 4th house, it would make sense to me, mommy issues once again with the moon and Chiron there as well. The wounds that he had directly squaring his sun in Taurus, and then his Mercury Venus loose conjunction, even if they weren't in the 4th house, that's like smooth talker, but not smooth talker like Sackler smooth talker.
Right.
More, hey, smooth
Right.
talker. And women are just like, oh my gosh. Because if you see him, like when he's younger, he's like,
Yeah, he's a
that
good
is
looking.
really
No, he's a
attractive
good looking
guy.
dude. He's
So
a good looking
women,
dude.
yeah, women.
I think I don't have a problem with face tattoos. I think his face tattoos are dumb. He put
Yeah.
like a Joker face tattoo
A
and then a
swastika.
swastika, which immediately makes him a fucking dick.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
really
not that he wasn't before.
on a side note, it's really like lame that Nazis are automatically associated with that symbol because that symbol actually is like a Hindu symbol that means something completely different. So
Right.
it sucks
Yeah.
that that's what people think of now when they see it. But anyways,
Yeah. So as I guess we wrap this episode up, the question is, how do you find empathy for this guy? He has these brain injuries. Was he not getting the help that he needed when he was younger? Florida is Florida. It doesn't really, I don't know what their quote unquote safety net is. I know California's,
yeah.
but I don't think Florida has the resources or provides the resources to help people.
I think that's such it reminds me of this other story that I told you. Remember that guy that was having seizures every single night and he was waking up and there was blood all over his pillow because his seizures were so violent that he was like gnawing on the inside of his mouth. And so he ended up having brain surgery. The surgeon said, I can make sure that the seizures stop by doing whatever to wherever in his brain. And the seizures stopped. But then one day the FBI showed up at his house. And this is a man who had, no criminal record, no criminal history, was really super sweet and a talented musician, a talented piano player. And when the FBI showed up, the wife was like, what is going on here? And he said that he knew why they were there. And he had been watching videos of children are being exploited. So anyway, he was he was watching these videos, and it was because he didn't have the mechanism for him to stop his impulses. So that has to do with our brain, with his brain. It could happen to you. It could happen to me.
Mm.
And so that is why it's hard. This one is hard for me. It's hard for me to say, fuck this guy, because he might not just be able to help it literally physically. His impulse control is not there. There's nothing stopping him. You and I imagine doing something like that, and we immediately are like, no, we could never.
So it's more if some of the other people, if they had some sort of brain injury, then maybe there would be a little bit more empathy or understanding. But the fact that these guys, at least to our knowledge, there's never been any mention of history of brain injury, where then maybe at this point that they're literally choosing
Yes.
to do this. How would you say that? Not emotionally, but they're making a conscious decision
Yes.
to choose to do this, where this guy here, his typical, for lack of a better term, shut off valves, where you would be like, okay, that's a bad thing,
Yeah.
just weren't there because of the brain injuries he had.
Exactly. And that's why Chiron is directly squaring his sun, which is at the tail end of this kite formation, where the tip of it is pointing at Pluto, which is power and transformation. And he
So
definitely transformed too. He's not the same. If you look at him when he was a kid to now, it's like totally different, obviously because he's grown, but the tattoos on his face
Right.
and just the way he looks too. Before he was smiley and happy, and then you look at him in the courtroom and he just looks evil.
Right. Yep, absolutely. And then they showed some like recent pictures of him, and he looks a little bit more bloated, which I think that has to do with, I'm sure he's on a ton of antipsychotics, which cause a lot of metabolic issues, and I'm sure the food in jail is crappy as shit. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah,
And
I think the
so,
bottom line is that like we need to do better in society for people like Wade Wilson. I also wonder how much of him being separated from his biological mother when he was only like 3 months old, how much that has to do with it. If anyone is out there is interested, there is a philosopher slash psychiatrist, I believe, named Stan Groff, and he has studied people when they take psychedelics. And interestingly, when people are given doses of LSD and they can relive their birth. And it's the very first experience that we ever have. And it's extraordinarily traumatic and traumatizing. And it's in our unconscious. And I don't know, I just wonder how much of what we do on a daily basis, how much is actually informed by that first experience that we have. And I don't know, I guess I'm just trying to say that I wish that we could do better for people in our society so
right.
that these women, Kristine, Melton, and Diane Ruiz, would not have met the fate that they did.
It's a sad case. There's definitely no winners here. But once again, looking at this pattern within these people we talk about, Jordan Belfort, there was a fan base. People loved him. This guy was known for taking money from people. And once again, this dude who's known for killing women has a huge fan base.
The ladies love him.
The ladies, and I don't understand that, especially nowadays when it seems like there's such a conscious shift of more awareness of like men being assholes. But still, you're always going to have those people that are just, I don't know, maybe it's just the attractiveness of the outlaw, but I don't know.
Face-matized. All right. I think that's it for Wade Wilson.
For sure.
Anything you want to say in closing?
No, I still say fuck this guy. I don't, as a male, I just can't have it's hard for me to have empathy for people that abuse anybody.
Yeah.
But especially women, it's just ridiculous. But
okay, we will see you next week. Do we want to say anything about who we're going to talk about next week?
Well, sure. Why don't you say his name?
His name is Brian Laundrie.
Yes, that is
we will be talking about Brian Laundrie next week.
The partner of
Gabby Petito.
Yep. All right.
All right.
We will see you next week. Bye.